I certainly can't tell anybody because they're going to, lock me up and throw me away. So I've got to keep this quiet. Even when I tried to tell people about the NDE, they told me I was crazy. So I had to stop talking about that. So I'm suppressing everything that I've seen my whole life because I don't want people to think of me as being strange or abnormal or anything else.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master Sun Quinn, and I have an incredible guest here today, a brother from another mother, Ray Catania. Welcome, friend, to the channel. I'm just so excited to have you here. You have such an incredible story, inspirational, and it's really an insight into consciousness. But I'm going to silence the windpipes here and let you share with the audience your background, where you came from, and moreover, let's get down to the get down of this incredible story that you have.
Thank you so much. Well, first, let me say it's an honor and a privilege to be with you today. Thank you so much for having me.
Brother, it's all mine.
So my story is kind of different, I would say. I started life being raised Christian, and but I came from a rather unhappy home where there was a lot of chaos and anger, between family members, and it became something that I would hide literally in places of the house so that I could avoid being a part of the chaos that was occurring. And, I would isolate myself for hours at a time sometimes. And what happens is when you're isolated for so long, 6 hours a day, 7 days a week, well, if you're just kind of looking at a wall, and these are in the years we didn't have phones, we didn't have computers, we had televisions, but I didn't have one. And you just start to be able to see more than the wall. You can start to see what the wall is made of, and you can start to see it kind of move a little bit. And what I'm seeing is energy. I don't know that at the time because I'm very young. But later in life, this will prove to be a significant part of the rest of the story. So as my life progresses, coming from this chaos, that becomes my comfort zone. So if things are not chaotic, I have to make them such because that's normal to me, right? My normalcy is chaos. So as I grow, I put myself into situations that can get me killed or hurt or, what have you. And I could navigate those waters, right? If everything was fine and happy and loving, I didn't know what to do because that's not the situation I came from. So I was kind of pre-programmed or dispositioned to that. And at the age of 20, I had an NDE. I had a death where I was sleeping, and I was on the second floor of my parents' home. The first floor is the kitchen, and of course in the kitchen is a stove. And what was happening was there was a gas leak that was from the stove, and the gas was rising to my room, and I was inhaling it all night. In the morning, I guess my mother had woken up and she went to, turn on the stove to make breakfast or whatever. And there was a big ball of flames and the wall caught fire. But the way I'm told the story is my father put it out rather quickly, and the fire and the smoke didn't become the problem. The main problem was that I was inhaling gas fumes for many hours. Wow. So they call 911, and the police and fire trucks are there, and I can hear the commotion, and it wakes me up, and I try to get up out of the bed. And this is when I first noticed something's very wrong, because certain parts of my body I cannot move. My legs felt like they weighed 2 tons, and I just couldn't move them. My head, I couldn't get it off the pillow. I couldn't yell. I couldn't get my mouth to move. So I had my arms kind of worked, and my right arm in particular. I grabbed the edge of the bed, and I would pull myself to the edge of the bed, hoping to get out of it. And I would make it about, 6 inches, and then I would pass out again. And then I'd hear something and it woke me up, and I would do the same thing again. I would get myself another 6 inches over, but then I would pass out. The third time, I knew that if I did not get out of this bed, I was going to die. So I gave it everything I had, and I pulled with everything I had, and I came out of the bed, and I tumbled out of the bed face first, hitting the floor. Here's what's interesting. When I hit the floor, there's no pain. I feel nothing. And that's because in that moment, I wasn't in that body anymore. So I was actually above it. And I was above it in like a neutral corner. If you picture a boxing ring, and you think of the room as a perfect square, where my body was and where I was a neutral corner looking down at my lifeless body. And in the other corner of the room is a white light that is shining only on me. It's like a spotlight. And I'm going to try to put it into some sort of context, because there's just no words to describe this light. It's not just a light. It's love, it's euphoria, it's painlessness, it's beauty. It's all things. And I was one with that light. And it was the most euphoric feeling I've ever had it in my entire life. I wanted to go further into the light. As I did go further into the light, the euphoria would increase. And at the end of the light, I recall that there was a being. Now, I don't know male or female or who it was, but they were telling me that it's safe to come into the light. They said, Ray, it's okay. It's safe. You can come into the light. And I continued to go a little farther. And again, the further I went, the better it felt. And in that moment, my father had come running into the room. And I see he scoops up my lifeless body, and he's screaming for the paramedics. He's crying. He's distraught. And, I didn't have a very good relationship with him. But I wanted to, but it wasn't that way. And when I saw that, I guess I felt, if I could go back, maybe that's the way it would be. And so I kind of asked, if I could return. I said, I really can't leave him like that. Is it, I guess I was negotiating to go back. And when I came to, I was not in that room anymore. I was in the living room on the floor, and the paramedics were working, and they had their tools and equipment and everything. And they were like, come on, we got to get the truck. And they were referring to the ambulance. We got to get this guy in. And I'm like, guys, I'm fine. I mean, I feel fantastic. You would not believe, I feel great. Did you see the light? Did you hear the voice? And now these guys are looking at me like, I'm either on drugs or I'm out of my mind. And I'm starting to think I better shut up or I'm going to go to the wrong hospital. Right. So I just, I let them do their thing. They throw me in the back of the ambulance, and off we go to the hospital. After that, I'm a kid now. I'm 20, but I can see energy from my youth, like my single digit years, like, 6, 7, 8, 9, just from that constant isolation, it's almost like putting yourself in a meditative state for hours upon hours. Right. So I have that ability. I don't know it's an ability. And I crossed over now, and I've seen kind of I've gotten a glimpse of the other side. I didn't go completely over, but I went through enough to know that there is something else, and it is beautiful. So what happens is they, meaning the folks in the next realm and their energy, they come back with me and they stay with me. And I remember the following year I had moved out, and I got my first apartment, and it was like my bachelor pad. And I was like, this is great. We're going to have parties, and I'm going to have chicks over, and it's going to be awesome, blah, blah, blah. None of that ever happened, because every time I would come home, that room was filled with what I felt like were people. And it was energy. and it would bounce off of me, and I would see the lines going across the white walls, and I would see the swirly energy out of the corner of my eye, and I would just see them move around, but they would impact me. I could feel it, like going through me almost. And there were many, and needless to say, they can mess with anything electric, right? So TV on, TV off. I change the channel, they change the channel. I'm on the phone goes dead. And these are landlines now. There's not a cell phone. This is a landline. And I remember talking to one of my friends, and I said, and I just said this in jest because, I completely rebelled against Christianity and my parents and everything. And I want to be an atheist. And I said to my friend, I said, I think my house is haunted. Click. And I call him back. I said, why'd you hang up on me? He goes, I didn't hang up on you. I said, oh, well, anyway, what I was saying is, I think the place is haunted. Click. They don't want me talking to them. They don't want me talking about this. So needless to say, as they continue to mess with me, for lack of a better word, I cannot sleep. They're keeping me awake. And I have the worst case of insomnia that I've ever had. So what do I turn to at that age? Drugs, alcohol, anything I can get my hands on to put myself to sleep and to not see these energies anymore. And it takes a lot of drugs and a lot of alcohol to accomplish that. So, but without it, I could not sleep. And so I had a 12-month lease, and I figure I got to get out of here. I'll get a new place. I'll be able to sleep. Things will become normal. I moved to my next apartment. I left 2 months early. I had a 12-month lease. I left in 10. I got my new place, and I'm like, okay, this is it. All right. Clean slate, chicks, parties, everything. I move in, and the exact same thing happens. So the apartments are not haunted. Ray's haunted. More drugs, more alcohol, more drugs, more alcohol. It's the only way I can turn it off. And I'm starting to think that I'm losing my mind. I don't see them as spirits. I don't see them as anything other than energy that is pushing me around, just constantly pushing and poking. So, when
you were seeing the frame of the room, you're getting like framing like neon lights, or
I don't know if I'd say neon, but they're definitely more vivid, and there's color, and it's more, when they would shoot across, there'd be black. It would be like a black line, but then it would come together and it would form into almost like an orb shaped energy, and it'll be like a swirly type of energy. And
wow.
and they're just bouncing around the room, and I'm feeling them, like I'm feeling what they're feeling, their emotions, but I don't know this at the time. I just think I'm losing. I just think I'm losing my mind.
No, I mean, it's really fascinating when I hear your description, because that was one of the first things that I recognized was that framing. So it would come in a neon form, and I'd look in a room, and it would start outlining as if it was a neon flashing light. It was kind of interesting that we have this correlation. It's always fascinating to me.
Yeah. And you don't know I don't know what I'm seeing, like, I don't know how to define this. I certainly can't tell anybody because they're going to, lock me up and throw me away. So I've got to keep this quiet. Even when I tried to tell people about the NDE, they told me I was crazy. So I had to stop talking about that. So I'm suppressing everything that I've seen my whole life because I don't want people to think of me as being strange or abnormal or anything else. So because my ego is just taking control of my life, right? And so what I do is, in the back of my mind, though, I don't fear death right now at this stage. So I put myself in worse and worse situations where I could potentially die, because I just felt like I had to up the ante and up the ante. I worked for some really bad people in bars, and a shootout in a bar was just like a Tuesday night. And there was one in particular I recall. When the gunfire started, I was behind the bar and I was hiding under the bar. And I'm trying to think, you know, how do I get out of here? And what happens is I get a message that says side door, side door. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't get to the side door. If I go to the side door, the shooter's going to see me. Side door, side door. And I go with it. So I go to the side door, I run out the side door, then I have to go down about a 40-foot corridor and then go out another side door. And don't you know, I parked my car right on the other side of that door. I've never, ever parked there. Never. I've always parked on the other side of the building. But on that day, for some reason, I put my car right outside the side door. So this being that was helping me get through this started helping me get through other things. I started to manifest some pretty bad stuff. I remember I manifested a car accident, and I wanted to have this car accident because I didn't want to go to my job anymore. I was very young. I was being harassed by my boss. You know, she was just disgusting, and I didn't want to go to this job. And I kept thinking to myself, if I had a car accident, but it wasn't that bad, you know, back then in those days, you could sue if you had an accident and get a lot of money. And I had a friend who actually had done that. So my wheels are turning and I'm thinking about this. And ultimately what I'm doing is I'm manifesting this to occur. Again, I don't know this, but that's what happens. And the way it happened is I was driving to work and a car just was about to cut me off. And at the last minute, I blew the horn and the car went back into its lane and we didn't collide. Nothing happened. But, you know, that chaotic, violent anger side of me had to come through, and I had to pull up alongside this guy and tell him everything I thought about him. So what I don't do is I don't pay attention to the traffic that's right in front of me, which came to a dead halt. And so I drove my car right into the back of the car that was in front of me while I'm telling this guy what I think of him. The next car hits me. Next car hits that car, which hits me again. I go into the left lane. Another car hits me, and now my car's spinning around. When it was all said and done, I was under the dashboard. We had seatbelts, but it wasn't a law that you had to wear it, and I didn't have mine on. And the voice says, "Get under the dashboard," because I just kept getting hit and hit and hit. And I was like, just make it stop, make it stop, make it stop. I put my hands over my head. I got under the dashboard and I just kept getting hit. Needless to say, I did not get very much money at all, and it certainly was not worth it. Do not try this at home. But the point is that you can manifest bad things for yourself, or you can manifest good things, and it depends on what's happening in your mind at the time. So I'll give you one more example of where this being saved my life. I was very young. I think I was about 10, and my parents had taken me down the shore, and I swam out into the ocean pretty far, and the undertow was pushing me back, and the lifeguard was taking everybody out of the water, calling everybody out. Now I'm swimming forward, but I can't get anywhere. I'm just swimming and I'm staying in place. And what happens is, of course, I'm getting tired. I'm young, and I start to panic, and I'm going down, and I'm waving for the lifeguard. And he's looking the other way. And my father, he's dead center right there, right in front of me. He's looking at me, and I'm going down, and I'm waving and I'm yelling, and he just stands there. And the being says, swim sideways, relax, take as long as you need, and just swim to shore. Swim sideways. Okay. So I'm swimming on an angle, and eventually I get to shore. I'm completely exhausted, and I just collapse on the beach. And apparently that's what you're supposed to do when the undertow pulls you out. You're supposed to swim on an angle. I had no idea that that's how you get out of that situation. So I finally get to shore, and I'm just absolutely distraught. The lesson I learned that day is the only person that I can count on is me. That's the way my life is going to be. So at this point in time, I am, living this reckless lifestyle. Um, I was definitely an alcoholic, and probably a drug addict. As I approach the age of 30, I get married and I have two children. And these kids, these boys, they saved my life, because when I had them, uh, it did matter if I lived or died now. I had that reason to preserve my life, whereas I
Right.
did not before. So I go back to college. I complete my degree. I go to rehab. I check myself in. Literally drove myself to rehab. Gave him the keys and said, "Don't let me out until I'm good." And I wound up getting a very good job. I worked in New York. I worked my way up the ladder. Um, and then I came back to Jersey. I got another corporate job, worked my way up the ladder, did very well again. My marriage, however, fell apart very quickly. No shock there. Probably in 3 years, I think we were divorced or separated, what have you. But these kids, they were dependent upon me, and I was going to do everything different than the way my parents did it. I was determined to give them the best life that they could have. And during this period, I kind of learned to adjust to the energies. They never left me. They're still there, but we kind of have an understanding. It's like we're living together, but they're not overpowering me. I'm accepting the fact. I'm accepting what is. I'm learning to surrender to what is. Again, I don't know what I'm doing yet, but that is what I'm doing. And we somehow coexist, and I'm able to function. And I did do well. And so now I'm about 48, maybe something like that. And I decide, you know what? Let me give dating a shot. Let me see what it would be like. And I didn't want to date for a long time. I mean, I'm damaged, right? I come from this place of total complete chaos, and the past was, I'm trying to put the past behind me and just do right by my kids. And I decide that I'm finally going to try to date somebody. And so I go online and I'm looking through these different websites, because that's how we meet people these days, I guess. And I come across this one particular website, and I see that they give you like 4 examples of ladies that are in your area to try to get you to join the site, right? And I saw one in particular and I said, "Oh my God, that's my wife." And I knew it right then and there. I saw her and I knew she was my wife. So I joined the site and I wrote one email. That's it. One email to her. And I told her, I said, "I'm joining the site to send you this email because you're my wife, but you just don't know it yet." And I said it in a more funny way than that. And luckily, she found it to be comical, returned the email, and we are married, and we are still married, living together in this house. And it's when we get together that things start to get, as if this isn't strange enough, this is where it gets strange. So we start dating, and it's the first couple of months that we're together. And she says to me, as we're getting more and more serious, she said, "So what are your spiritual beliefs?" I said, "I have absolutely no idea. It's been something I've been meaning to get around to, but I really don't know." And she says, "Okay, for your birthday, I'm going to get you a spiritual clearing." And I was like, "All right, whatever that is. Okay, sure." I said, "Well, we'll have cake though, right? There'll be cake." She said, "Yeah, there'll be cake." She's like, "It's a distance healing. You don't even have to be there. The woman will call you. Just don't book any appointments on that day." And I said, "Oh, whatever, fine." So she calls, and that's exactly what happens. And she says, "Don't make any life-changing decisions and don't have any appointments for the next 48 hours. Okay, where's my cake? So, I hang up the phone and I think nothing of this. But afterwards, it's about 2 hours later, and I start feeling really strange. And it takes me back to the feeling that I had when I was in that apartment, and the energies are bouncing off me like ping pong balls. And that's where I'm at again. And I'm at work. and it's a Friday. And I remember I go home early. I say, I got a headache. I got to get out of here. And I leave. Friday, this man comes to me in what I will call a movie screen. Okay. I am not seeing this with my eyes. I am not hearing him with my ears. It's right here. It's my sixth sense. I don't understand what that is yet, but the window or the movie screen kind of opens up and he comes front and center almost and says the same thing to me over and again. He says, I effed up. I made a mistake. You can help her. I cannot. Now, I don't know who this man is. I don't know what that message means. I know nothing about what I'm seeing, but that's the first time the energy took form into what appeared to be a human form. And the guy was a husky guy. He had a beard and a mustache, dark hair. And now I think I am insane. I believe I'm insane. Every hour on the hour, I see the same video loop, I call it. Same 8 seconds. I effed up. I made a mistake. You can help her. I cannot. Over and over and over. Saturday, it's continuing, but now it's happening maybe every half hour. I don't know if these times are exact, but the point is that's happening closer and closer together. By Sunday, it seems like it's every 5 minutes and I can't function anymore. I can't drive. I can't talk. I can't do anything. And I'm at the counter and I remember I'm at the store and I'm paying for my stuff. And I don't know what I did exactly, but the lady behind the counter says, "Sir, are you okay?" And I said, "I am not. No, I'm not okay." And I went out to my car and I sat in my car and I said, "Okay, this is it. I've lost my mind. I gotta get my affairs in order. I have a will. I need to call my brother, make sure he's got it, make sure he's got the DNR, because I'm going back to that light. That much I know. And I need to make sure that I've got everything prepared for my death. And this is where my head is at. And how do I tell this woman who I love, I just fell in love with, how do I explain to her, I'm crazy, I'm sorry, but I see people that are not really there and I don't know what to do with that. To top it all off, she's a doctor of psychology by trade and a doctor of neuropsychology. So can't make this stuff up. So I'm debating over whether or not to tell her, but I figure I'm looking at it this way. I'm going to tell her she's going to run for the hills. That's a given. Okay. But since she's in that field, she'll probably be able to get me some help. She'll tell me who I should
psych evaluation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, call this guy. He's a doctor in whatever, and never call me again and have a nice life. That's what I'm expecting. Right. And that's not what she says at all. She says to me, she goes, I tell her, about the message and the movie screen and what he says. And she goes, "Oh, that sounds like my dad." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, I've seen plenty of mediums. My dad always comes through with a message. It sounds like it's just my dad. You're probably a psychic medium and you don't even know it." I was like, "What the hell is a psychic medium?"
I love it. I love it.
I don't know what this is. And then I remembered that I had seen a picture of her dad and it was on the mantle. And I said, that picture that you have, it does not look like that guy at all. It's not your dad. This guy was like stocky, beard, mustache, thick black hair.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, that picture was 25 years old and he was shaven and he lost a lot of weight. She goes, "Let me show you what he looked like every day." And she goes through her phone, shows me a photo. And I'm like, "You know that man?" She's like, "That's my father, silly." Now, I don't know what to do. My heart just sank. It's in the pit of my stomach. Am I insane? Am I not insane? Who is this man? What am I seeing? And why am I seeing it? And I'm beside myself. Thank God. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, it's like that. That's like the first, like exposure to sort of a clear sense that is so clear. It's like you get these images and people can't understand how they just come in. The biggest misconception is when people want to attempt to decipher what it is. Until you get a handle of your own language, the deciphering is unnecessary. I mean, but it's like you have these epiphanies. I'm just so excited listening to your story, because these are sort of like this is the realization of someone having an understanding. They're accessing direct source information. They're speaking to an entity that is operating on a different dimension, that is coming presently through the antenna that is you, and you're realizing it. And it's like you have a moment. People might call it a breaking or whatever. I remember the breaking many decades ago, where I felt like I don't experience depression, fear, anxiety. And I felt all those things, including like, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. I'm going to be psychotically like basically put into some padded cell, because it's so magnified, the experience, and it's a transformation of their whole energetic body. And so all this is coming out, and listening to you is just like making my heart sing. I get so excited because these are experiences that people need to understand, that they get trapped in stuff and then they don't allow it, and then it just disappears. They have this glimpse and they end up with yourself or myself going, man, I want this. I had this when I was like 15 or 20 or something, and I know there's something greater out there, but I've done such a great job of training myself to dismiss it that we're going to have to kickstart this stuff.
Yeah, and don't you something you mentioned is really ironic. The second I gave her that message, it was gone. He was gone. Like, I felt like a whole weight was lifted off my shoulders, right? So ultimately, I later learned that that's what I was supposed to do, was give her that message. And after that message, more messages come in, and we eventually piece it together, because it's kind of like a puzzle, right? Or for me anyway, the way it came was bits and pieces, and we had to kind of figure out what it meant. And it actually,
I was going to say, Ray, I really want you to share with the audience, because now it's like framing out. Like for me, I just got this like computer screen. Everything went full like vivid colors, images, data, information. Imagine you're looking at a computer screen. I hit on an icon, all the information comes up, and then you start. First, it becomes overwhelming. But when you realize you can tailor your operating system to however you want it to be, so the information comes in at your pace, is something that people need to understand. Like, I've got a sense that you're going to come to something similar to that. But I mean, experiencing this with a realization that there is an actual, not a solution, but a way for you to create this messaging, that if you're still at a place where it's not audible, you're still getting an inaudible thing that's like clear messaging in your mind, whether they're direct images or certain things happen and you go, oh, this happened 5 times. And every time that happens, a guy with a rose comes in and says, bingo, something that you can validate. And again, that can become so much more complex if you choose it to be, and get it really deciphered right down to audible sounds and to something of that nature. But it's just so exciting to hear you say it, because this is what people are, it's so important to be able to come and find someone like yourself or myself to help them grasp their reality and realize how powerful they are. I'm not going to say another thing. I just sort of that's really something.
That's exactly what I did. So she said to me, my wife, she wasn't my wife yet, she says, there's a medium coming to town, and she's like really well known, and she's world renowned, and you guys can sit together and you can explain what you see and how you see it, and you can get some validation. And I said, okay, that makes sense, and that's exactly what happened. She started, first I got in there and I was petrified, absolutely, because I don't know which way I want this to go, right? Like, what is this mediumship? How's that going to affect my life? What are my obligations? What do I have to do with that? But the alternative is that I'm crazy and I'm going away for the rest of my life. So I don't know which way I want this to go, honestly. And I sit down and I said, hi, I'm Ray. And she looks at me and she goes, "Oh, you're that Ray." And I said, "That Ray?" She goes, "What's going on, Ray?" And I said, "Well, I'm insane, I think." And she says, "Let's have a seat. Let's talk." And I proceed to tell her what I see, how I see it, the feelings, the vibrations, how the room changes. And she's like, "Relax, stop. That's exactly the way I see it. In fact, that's the way we all see it." Okay. And I said, "Okay." And then I proceeded to tell her about a different type of premonition. And she's like, "Okay, so that's your clairvoyance, that's your psychic side. And that's what that is." And then I gave her a third, and she's basically explaining to me the differences in what I'm experiencing. And she's like, "It's really rare that a man has all three." And I was like, "Oh, well, okay." Like, I didn't know really what to make of that, but I know that my wife is way smarter than she could do 46 things at one time. I can do two. So I guess I could understand why women might be able to do this better. And I'm like, so I'm not crazy then. She goes, "No, you're not crazy." And in fact, she goes on to tell me that her parents thought she was crazy and she was institutionalized. And I start thinking to myself, how many people out there are institutionalized or heavily medicated for something that's actually a gift, right?
I mean, that realization. I mean, if I had a penny for how many times I've come across someone with more separated ideas, bipolar, personality disorder, schizophrenia.
Schizophrenia.
These
Yeah.
are all just from my realization of everything that over the 30 years I've been doing this, I got stuck between a dimension and I can't turn it off. And so they're stuck receiving this information and they're incapable of slowing it down, changing it out. And so it's a matter of moving them through into a state where they can realize that. And I've actually witnessed that many times. People that go, "I've been diagnosed as I'm bipolar, I'm crazy, or I'm schizophrenic, I'm crazy." That, to me, from my experience, from what I've witnessed, what I've seen people actually shift through the actual dimensional shift and then have it realized,
Yeah.
and they're all of a sudden, I'm I'm
I'm
I'm
not
on the other
crazy.
side. I'm not crazy, and
Yeah.
it's like a shift. That's what I've experienced. I'd love to hear
Yeah. Yeah.
whether
Well,
you
I
tell us.
accepted that she was so knowledgeable and she could really express uh, how she saw and felt things. And it was identical to the way I did as well. So she actually took me on as a mentee and she was my first mentor, which, I would say saved my life because I didn't know. The most important thing is you have to learn how to turn it off, right? So it's not overpowering you to the point where you can't function. And that is, that's the real fear, right? Is that you're not going to be able to turn it off. It's going to take control and it's going to derail your entire life. But I
And become
learned,
realized,
yeah, I
right?
learned, yeah, that's what you have to, that's the first thing she taught me is just how to, turn it on. Now I have it like a cell phone. I can take the call or I can reject the call.
And
And
I mean it's attention, intention. What how I train people in it is like you can then just have it all on, you can
yep,
have it off, and if you something draws your attention that you want to find a little bit more information about, boom, over there,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's on. Or you accept nothing. I'm sorry, I'm not taking phone calls today. I'm on sleep mode.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then you know how you get different vibrations, right? Some are low and some are high. And I learned that the lower ones are the more serious, deep, it's going to be something that's serious in nature. And I start to answer those calls instead of the high tingly ones, which is going to be great news because I think that it's going to be more important. But that affects me actually very negatively as a person because now I'm tuning into only the negatives, right?
Right.
And I'm not taking the good stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, and how you cultivate. We were just talking about energy before this. It's like what the biggest misconception that I've identified with over all the years I've done it is people tend to perceive the higher ascension as this almost like translucent um, uh, experience that cannot be expressed through the physical body. In actuality, when you when you cultivate and you become really
Tuned
very,
in.
very sensitive,
Yeah.
the energy becomes thicker. It doesn't become lighter.
Mm.
And so people kind of go, well, that doesn't make any, that's not the Hollywood. No, it's not. This is
no.
it becomes even more and more dense as you acquire and master and it's all about just mastering your cultivation. So it's like, as you receive it, it becomes, normally I could get someone who's a skeptic, who's had zero experience with energy, and I'll have them feeling their energy body, I don't know, 60 seconds, I don't know. And they're like, wow, how is that possible? And
Right.
or someone will be like in it, and then they'll show me kind of like a personally where they're at their own perception, and they'll be like, oh, you want me to feel energy? Okay. Whoa, no. Don't rub the hands. This is Hollywood movie stuff.
Right.
When you turn on the energetic body, it will be realized. You will feel as though equivalent to the WebMD version, that you might have diabetes, you've got neuropathy, you've got other issues, and this will be translated into this physical transmutation. And if you don't understand it, like Ray's talking about, you go there.
Yeah.
You go there. You have all these symptoms that would be realized in the physical world as something completely different than what you're experiencing, but it's transmuted as that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you take what you're given, right? So if somebody says this is what it is and you don't have any idea what it is, you accept that as your truth. And guess what? It becomes your truth. So thank God I found a mentor who taught me what the truth, the actual truth. And then when I understood it better, then I could handle it better. And it didn't tear me apart, and here I am today. And it turned out to be a very positive part of my life. And the about a year goes by, and I get my next mentor, and it's very strange how this happens. We went away for my birthday. We always go away for my birthday, and something, let's say, crazy happens, for lack of a better word. And in this particular time, we went to first. My wife says, "Where do you want to go? You want to do the Bahamas? You want to go to the beach? You want to do this?" I said, "I want to go to a little cabin in the middle of nowhere with trees and an outhouse. I just want to be in nature. I love trees. I don't know why, but I got to be with trees." And she's like, oh, "Okay." And it was just like, who would say that, right? She wants to take me anywhere you want to go. I just want to go where there's a tree that I can hug and I can be next to the tree. So anyway, we're in this cabin and we're in the middle of nowhere. And she takes out this drawing that was a drawing of her dad. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, that's exactly the way I saw him when he was in the movie screen in my mind, wearing that shirt. And she's like, yeah, that doesn't surprise me because the medium that I saw was a spirit artist and he drew this. And I was like, so he saw him exactly the way I saw him. That shirt during that era was very popular. So there was no mistaking that type of shirt that it was, right? So that just blew my mind. And I was like, I have to find it. Who is this guy? Right. So we pull him up on the computer. We type his name in and his site comes up and it says, now accepting applications for a 2-year mentorship program with Medium Joe. And the deadline to apply is February 15th. That's my birthday. She's like, hey, right. She's like, are you going to apply? I said, yeah. And let me tell you, the application, you fill out an application, you throw it in, then you get another one, you put that back. They're essay questions. I mean, it was like filling out a phone book with answers. Then you get interviewed, and then there's another process. So he is not taking you unless you can prove to him that you're the real deal. So after I go through the whole process, I hear nothing. And now I'm back to being skeptical and saying, you know what, I probably just guessed that. And I probably saw a picture and maybe that's how I'm not real. The whole NDE thing, I probably fell in front of a window on a sunny day. There's the white light. All of a sudden, I'm justifying everything right back to my analytical brain and allowing it to completely overtake me. So I decide that since I didn't get chosen for the program, I may as well call and just find out maybe why or whatever. So I called, and his assistant said, she goes, no, we didn't finalize it yet. We're not done. There's hundreds of applications. And I was like, oh, so I still do have a shot. And so there's hundreds of people now that want to be in this program. The program costs several $1,000s. It is not cheap. Okay. And there's hundreds of people that want to be in the program. This gives you a little taste of the integrity of this man. When I got into the program, I was chosen. I was number 11. That's all there was 11 people in the program. Out of hundreds, only 11. So he could have taken everybody and made hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? But he would not go against his principles. You've got to prove you're the real deal, or he's not taking you. And I was like, wow, now this is a guy I want to learn from. And I did. I stayed with him for the whole 2 years. I'm still with him. And it's like 5 years later, I think. I don't even want to like graduate and get their certificate. I'm like, no, I'm staying with you forever. Sorry, you're stuck with me. I'm I'm never leaving you unless you kick me out. And so, I was so lucky to have those people in my life. You look back now and you see the people you interact with. And I know that, I attracted them. I was seeking them. There was a part of me inside that was seeking these people. And I found them, and it just changed everything for me. So I remember I was writing the second book, and at the end of the second book, as I'm writing it, I have a spiritual awakening. Like I believe people have many awakenings, but this one was a really big one for me. I had been working on getting rid of the emotions that I don't want to have, breaking up my ego, really fracturing it, making significant changes. And this one time, it was so significant because I had lost my anger, and my anger was my go-to emotion for everything, because that's what I saw growing up. So that's what I repeated. And it was one day I was driving, and it was a snowy day, and it turned into a blizzard. And I was driving my car, which I had saved up to buy. It was a very expensive car because I thought that was a big deal back then. And I drove it into a deer. And now the old me would have gotten out of the car, ranting, raving, yelling. Who knows what I don't know what I would have done, but I would have been angry. That adrenaline surge that you get, when something, well, you don't get it, but some people still get it. And that didn't come. It didn't happen at all. In fact, I felt nothing. I felt calm. I felt compassion for the deer. And I got out of the car to check on the deer. I didn't even check on my car. And the deer got up and walked away unharmed, which was crazy. I'm unharmed. I checked myself out. I'm not hurt. This was a big deer. When you hit a big deer, a lot of people wind up in the ER. My car was trashed, but I'm okay. The deer's okay. And that's all I'm worried about. Who am I? Like, I don't recognize myself now. So I get back in the car and I pull over and I start to dial my wife's phone number. We weren't married yet. That's why I was driving to my house. And then I stopped and I said, why am I calling her? To ruin her night? Nothing happened here that she needs to know. It's just going to upset her. This makes no sense. It's going to make me feel better, maybe, but I don't think so. It's just pointless for me to dump my crap onto somebody else that I love. I closed the phone. I put it down. I drove the car to the auto body shop, and then I Ubered home and I went to sleep. I didn't lose any sleep. I wasn't up thinking about it all night. I just went to sleep. The next day, my kid wakes up and he goes, Dad, I think somebody stole your car. Somebody stole your car. And I said, no. I just had an accident last night. No big deal. And he's like, you had an accident? Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me you had an accident? I said, because you're reacting like this. And I didn't want to do that to you. And he's like, who the F are you? What have you done with my dad? And I said, it's just a car, man. It's just a car. It's not a big deal. And I got up and I took an Uber to work. And then I remembered I was getting acupuncture that day. And I used to do that on my lunch break because it was right across the street from where I worked. And I'm telling the woman who's working on me this story, and she's crying. She's just like, crying. And I'm like, she's like, it's such a beautiful moment. And I said, yeah, but I have no idea who I am. I don't know how to like act now. I don't know, I'm learning who I am now all over again, but I'm finding the real Ray, right? Not the Ray that was imposed upon me through my subconscious and my ego. I'm actually becoming the real person that I am for the first time in my life. And half of my life is over at this point. But, well, who knows? Maybe I'll live to be 200. We'll see. But,
yeah, I don't, yeah. The numbers I see, you got a long time on this earth.
Really? Because I really do like that light. Yeah.
But it's just materialized with just the evidence of where things are right now with the humanists, and just that in itself, you engage with just things that help keep this vehicle operating, you'll be shocked at the outcome, the number.
I still, I still continue to learn and grow. And I mentioned the book because I had to go back and rewrite it because I felt completely different about it, and, the first book is kind of like the story of my life and how I got there. And then the second book is showing others how to do what I did and have that awakening. So that's kind of where I am now, where I coach and I teach other people and teach them how to have their own awakening. And the reason I chose to leave mediumship behind was because I just found happiness, which, is really interpreted as not having the negative emotions. It's not about being blissful and being happy all the time, right? It's being content with wherever you are, whatever you have, and whatever you're doing. And it's just being happy in that particular moment, regardless of where you are or what you're doing. So the mediumship, what I have to do to kind of get that message is I have to commingle my energy with their energy. I have to allow them to come into me. And when they come through, they're coming because they have remorse, regret. They want to fix something. They didn't do something. They didn't say something. Right. So it's these emotions that I don't want to experience anymore. And I just kind of got rid of those. And I really can't do that right now in my life. So I put mediumship on hold. I still train because it's important for me to learn. And plus I learn other aspects of spiritualism, but I can't practice it at this right now. I'm just enjoying, I just started to find who I really am. And I kind of like myself a little bit, and I'm happy for the first time in my entire life.
That's beautiful. Yeah. You can frame anything out the way you want, and where you're at right now is the perfect sweet spot where you need to be. But having that epiphany, that realization, and being able to access that and sort of master that access. I don't know. As your new bestie, I might nudge you along there to reconsider. It's just how you frame it. Like, sometimes I'll have 3 or 4 or 10, channel them at once individually, and it really, it's if you're in a certain space, then it's going to have a fundamental effect on your energetic body, your physical body. And so I would just preface that. That's all. And the more you identify with that, it's where you want to go. And you've already stated that. That's the beautiful part. It's like people, I get people that get it in, they don't want it.
Yeah.
They come to me to erase it. They're like,
Yeah, turn it off.
I want it gone. And I'm like, listen, that's not for me to decide. Absolutely. Let me show you how fast you're not going to ever experience this again. And they're like, holy moly, it's like night and day. It's like, well, look, it's just understanding the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
It's not anything foreign to you. It's not something you don't already realize. But when you're given the stepping stones, then it's empowering to realize how quickly you can diffuse or disconnect or turn off whatever it is that you're experiencing too much of.
I begged my first mentor to teach me how to turn it off when it just started to get traumatizing, because I started having like murder victims coming to me and trying to tell me who killed them, and when you see that for the first time, that's stuff like that stays with you, and so many suicides, so many. And I just so I just wanted it off, but then she said, this is what she said. She goes, give it 2 more weeks. Okay. She gave me a bunch of information and said, give it 2 weeks. And if you still want to do it in 2 weeks, we'll turn it off. And of course that time never came. And I just had to learn how to navigate it, how to, like answer the call, don't answer the call.
Yeah. I mean, the suicide one is a really interesting one for me because I've probably transitioned dozens of people. I wouldn't even want to put a number. I wouldn't want to think about it. So, entering a space where they're on their deathbed, you're creating this space, you have their loved ones. One specific event I remember quite clearly where they flew me in and I set a space where the family was on the other side of the world. They couldn't make it for 2 weeks. And their son was on what was considered life support. And they said he's so unstable that he could go at any second. And so when I entered the space and I started showing one of the siblings how to move the energy through his body, and these vitals would change from like a racing heart rate to regulated to calm.
Wow.
And then they're like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, I'm just showing them how to move. You're just moving the energy. That's it. I mean, we're not doing any rocket science here. And so this is sort of like, in my opinion, a beautiful thing to witness when someone transitions into another, dimension.
It really is. But I'll also say, we have to, I think, cherish every moment, like that we have here, because sometimes NDEers, we get like a rap that we make it look so great, that people start thinking about, well, maybe if I ended my life and listen, there's no way I would ever end my life knowing that there is something else, and I know it's going to be beautiful. I'm in no rush to get there, and no one should be in a rush to get there. We've got so much to do here to better ourselves and better humanity. We got a lot of work to do here. There's no rush to go there. It's just,
I concur. It's a great point that you're making, Ray. Most of the people that come to me that have committed suicide is like, oh, I want back in. My bad. It's like you walked out of a nightclub and you want back in. Oh no, we can't let you. That's the velvet rope is closed. And they're like, no, because normally everything and how the spirit enters the physical body through the essence within Taoism and how I've been trained in it. They move through the kidneys because that's really the constitution, the life force. So they will move back that way, back into the physical body. It won't come from the top, even though they leave from the top. That's they're embodying the physical. And so they come to the physical and they're like, oh, the doors it's locked up, there's chains on it, there's no, well, you're on to your next one. Let's go. Where do you want to go? What are you talking about? I want back. I was messing with you. And that is messing with you. Right. Because there's the entities that they're listening to, audible, inaudible, suggestions, the processes, how they're perceiving their reality, gives them the idea, let's just make this all end. Let's do this. You got this. You're here. This is going to be so much better It'll solve all your problems. If look at how much greener it is on the other side. If I had a penny for how many stories that I've had to listen to and witness to where people have been robbed of their incarnation for this lifetime because guess what? They can't experience the physical body anymore. They can hang out as an earthbound spirit all day long, but they got robbed of it because they were lured in by the misdirection and the lower toned expression that they believed was coming from them. And so when I tell people, when you believe you are not of this body, what can harm you? I remember the first time I shared that with my mother. She's like, I don't want to die. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
Because you understand that once you realize this is nothing more than an expression of this very brief moment on planet Earth,
yeah.
This is just a page. Read it. Read it over again. Read it 5 times. Read it 100 times because this page is a beautiful signature of your expression, and it will be the most beautiful expression. Read that page 1,000,000 times until you're ready to turn the page. But that could be many, many years.
Yeah. And write a page, right? Because we can do anything. It's just a matter of learning how the universe actually works in order to make it give you the things that you want. And I don't mean like material things, but you can have material things. There's nothing wrong with that. But I mean like losing my anger, losing my sadness, losing those things. I still experience it. Don't get me wrong, but it ends rather quickly. It doesn't stick around for 3 days. I don't dwell on revenge or nonsense like that. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, I mean, what you're saying, Ray, is a really profound thing. It's so strange because that's like the baseline I like to get people embodied in is your emotions don't control you, you control your emotions. People are like, oh, that sounds like you're some big high testosterone driven sort of like Sifu. And I'm like, no. When you realize you're being lied to and you're listening to this cycle of information that is just an imprint of past experiences that you are simulating as your reality right now, this is the misdirection. This is the time waster, right?
Yeah.
And so the faster you get down with the get down and you realize what it is real. And like us talking about this right now is a real epiphany, especially at this stage in the evolution of humanity right now and what we're experiencing on planet Earth, because 10 years ago, you couldn't do this. What is this? Well, yeah, 10 years ago, when I say you couldn't do this, what does it mean? Go to Yelp and look up psychic and get 500 psychics. Look up healer and get 500 healers. 10 years ago, that wouldn't exist. It wouldn't probably exist even 5 years ago. The rapid increase of people's consciousness and realization is at an amplitude and a speed that is second to none, and I love it. I love the fact that I can find, and embrace a new brotherhood like the one that we're experiencing, a new relationship, a new friendship that's being realized from past lives, and we're having it right now, and we get to express it, and we can experience and share in our expression of that and enhance our experience. Because as I always remind people, the student is the teacher is the student. There's not a moment that you don't realize something from someone, someplace, person, or thing that makes your consciousness being wider. There's no end, in my opinion. So, I mean, this is, to me, I'm just very grateful to Lao Tzu and the Tao that they've brought you into my life. There are no coincidences.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my honor to be here. I learned a lot from you today when we were speaking earlier, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, well, brother, we're just starting. I'm pretty sure I'm getting the Dear John wind it down. I know we've spent a lot of time today, and Ray's been very gracious with his time, and I know that two of us can continue, but I also understand that you have some people that you need to attend to. So I'm going to wind this down about now. And there's going to be a part 2 to the audience. This is happening. Don't you worry. There's going to be a lot more of a Ray on this channel and just the friendship. I love doing the explorations where I'm recently doing a series where I go into all the casinos and I read all the energy hotspots and the spirits that are in there. And so people then can go and reference that hotspot and that spirit and go and sample it. And
wow,
it's kind of crazy. It's crazy because recently in Caesars, I'm probably going to get some heat for that. But like they configured the feng shui of that deliberately, so everyone who walks through the front door loses. You have to go through a certain pattern. There's a pattern that is being operated in, and it's the second door that you enter the casino with that will give you good luck. And you got to go through a certain sequence, activating specific entities that are the keepers of that area. So there's a turbulence. I did Luxor a while back, and that was crazy. That was kind of like a wild ride of integration of a Native American burial ground that they put that hotel on top of, and all these Egyptian spirits. Wow. So there was like these two gangs covering the space, and you can fundamentally feel the difference in the frequency, and then going to specific places in the hotel. It's wild. It's absolutely wild stuff. But we're gonna go on the magical mystery ride together.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, brother. So again, I can't thank you enough for sharing your time with us today, and you are just another incredible gift of consciousness that's an expression that's being shared in my life. And you're just, I don't know, I'm very, very grateful to have you being brought in, and all the validation, all the things that you're sharing are so enlightening for anyone that is going on this journey. And you and I seem to find these people that need answers, and they come to us. They need the answers. They need to help understand what is the simulation that they're experiencing. And I meant to ask you, so what's going on in Ray's life right now? What are you doing in relation to your expression? You're teaching people. You've got books. Please share with the audience.
Yeah. So I've written 2 books. The first is called The Atheist and The Afterlife, and that is the story of me going from atheism to spiritualism. Excuse me. And the second book, sorry, I must be losing my voice, is about the transition and how I become aware of that spiritual awakening, that I had mentioned, and how you can replicate it. And you can find out more about the books at RayCatania.com. And thank you so much for allowing me to say that. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, brother. I mean, that's what your presence here is to share with our audience, the realization that this is really happening. This is not a simulation. This is, well, in some aspects, some people would believe it is a simulation to a certain degree, but we're not going to go down that road. Let's just validate what people are perceiving as something that is not tangible, and in actuality, through your expression, through myself, through other guests, it's a validation that this is real, that we are experiencing these things, and that you can get a grasp of it. You can create a tangible experience where you can validate it yourself. And I would love to draw my audience attention to your website, to your teaching. Get Ray's books, and get a greater understanding. And he's available for I think you're available for one-on-one sessions.
Yeah, you can contact me through the website. Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. And thank you. I'm winding this down because I'm assuming I can see the hook coming out. It's like it's time, it's time. Unless you've got more time, I'm good.
Unfortunately, I do have a client, but I would love to stay with you all day. Right?
Well, we're going to do this again really soon, brother. I really look forward to it, and we'll connect after the podcast and start getting into deeper collaborations. Which
sounds great. That
I
sounds
love it.
great.
I
Thank
love
you
it.
so much. Thank you for having me.
So it's been my pleasure. So I want to thank you, Ray, for sharing your incredible experiences and your mastery, and how people can now acquire a deeper insight and use your tools and how to get there, because there's never a right or wrong way. People need to understand that there's a million ways to go up the mountain. And
Yep.
so resonate with what resonates with you,
Yeah.
and have that expressed through your experience, and you will feel it. You will feel it from the truth teller. The truth teller is going to give you all that you need. And that's why I resonate with my brother here, Ray, because there's nothing but truth coming out of that incredible being. So I want to thank you, brother. Appreciate you and sharing your time with us in the podcast.
Thank you.
Anything closing you want to give someone a seed of enlightenment, something that you could share with the audience that will help them?
Well, I think the most important thing for kind of all of us is to remember that we all come from that one source of energy, and essentially we're kind of in that way we're all one. And being good to one another and being good to yourself, it's just the more we try to help one another, the more we're going to evolve as a human species, and hopefully reach that tipping point where we can become one here in this realm now. And that would just be a fantastic situation, should we be able to achieve it. And I think we can. I think we're getting there.
It's beautiful, beautiful closing words, brother. So I want to thank you. I want to thank the audience. And I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master Sun Quinn, and I'll see you guys on the next one.